Welcome to the Post-Purchase Pro Podcast.
This is the only podcast that dives deep into post-purchase marketing to help Amazon sellers increase sales, ranking, reviews, and profits. It's everything that happens after the initial sale that makes a difference. We call this the back end.
Welcome to the Post-Purchase Pro Podcast.
There we go. This is the only. How you like that, Seth?
I love it. And Sean, today is the day we've been waiting for quite some time. We have a very special
I'm working
guest.
handicapped. Okay, I'm handicapped here.
I know you are.
May doesn't know we're doing this. This is an impromptu sort of introduction to something that, Seth, I learned probably, let's say, mid-June at Kevin's $1 Billion Seller Summit. I met these two handsome gentlemen in Puerto Rico, and I've been dying to show our audience this ever since that day. So without further ado, Seth, why don't you bring Michael out and tell folks what they're in to treat for?
Yeah, so today we have Michael Fenech, the co-founder of SKUdrop. You guys are all the rage right now, Michael. You're saving people so much money in ways that they don't even realize, adding back tons of profit to their businesses on Amazon. And, we're super excited to have you today. So welcome to the show, Michael.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. And I loved your intro, by the way. That was really, really cool. But yeah, it's great to be here, and obviously great to spread the word about SKUdrop, which is becoming the talk of the town, which is really exciting.
Yeah, definitely. Now, it's not too often that we get to have a fun interview, but Michael, everything that I know about SKUdrop so far that you and Jamie are putting out there in the industry, it's absolutely, positively nothing short of game changing for Amazon sellers around the world. Why, Michael, did you decide to jump into this? Why did you start the company? What the heck were you thinking about when you're helping so many sellers out there?
Yeah, it's a great question. Myself, Jamie, and our SKUdrop partners are all Amazon sellers. We're all, got 7-figure brands and all that sort of stuff. So we're quite successful. But basically I suppose the seed that was planted was during COVID, and when shipping prices went through the roof, a lot of sellers that we knew were struggling with, the supply chain component. Their margin was evaporating, and everyone was in quite a panic. And it's quite funny because you think about Amazon, and you've got, the listing and the product and the packaging, and sort of no one really pays attention to the supply chain. It's like the ugly part of the business. But us being entrepreneurs and, in brackets, I suppose, problem solvers, we actually got a group of sellers together, and we had one objective. How can we solve this supply chain problem? And one of our partners is from China, and he mentioned a couple of things on the call, and all our jaws dropped. And it was the penny dropping. And we realized that Eastern seller strategies work, but Western sellers aren't doing it. And from there, SKUdrop was born, which we can go into more detail. So then we ran. So what we did then.
What was that one statement, Michael, that made you decide this changes everything, guys? What was that defining moment?
Well, our partner said, I've never sent a full container and I've never used a 3PL. And our partner's got a very, very large Amazon business, and we all scratched our head because we're all sending containers, using 3PLs, extra costs, more people touching your product. So we basically went on a mission, and we ran the numbers on spreadsheets to eliminate the 3PL component, and it was mind-blowing. We all were saving margin on a COGS basis, and we thought, wow. So then from there, we kind of validated the product, right? Because obviously it's all about the numbers. And then we went into infrastructure mode, software mode, and sort of building the whole piece of the puzzle. And then we delivered it to the public. So a lot of work went into it. We obviously created the business right in the middle of the biggest pandemic that we've seen for the last, whatever years, 10, 20 years, whatever. And it was... the main thing is our customers have really responded. Our customers are very intelligent, right? Amazon sellers who are doing well, they're very, profit driven, and obviously looking at their numbers and looking for little efficiencies. And we've done hardly any marketing, and we've had, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of brands come to use our service, which is really exciting. And I suppose they're self-validating the service. They're looking at the logic of it. They're removing 3PLs, doing the maths. And we get emails, on most days saying, I can't live without SKUdrop because you're so efficient in the supply chain, which we can go into.
Yeah,
Wow.
Michael. So can you describe, and you and I were speaking before the call about how it all works, and it's amazing. But can you describe for the average seller out there who's trying to squeeze as much profit as they can, Amazon's squeezing them on PPC, everyone's getting squeezed. You guys step in and say, hey, you have a problem here that you don't really realize that you have. It is that you have so much profit built in your supply chain, but you don't really know how to get it out. So can you walk us through how do you actually draw profit out of the supply chain, like in literal steps? How do you actually do this?
Well, I'll answer that by actually opening up with what SKUdrop isn't. And what SKUdrop isn't is what everybody's doing in the supply chain. So basically, everybody gets their entire order, whether it's 3 or 4 months worth of stock. Once it's ready at the supplier's factory, they then go out and waste time, and they send emails, and they're making phone calls, and they're trying to find quotes from different freight forwarders. That's the first step. The second part of what people are currently doing is that then they get their entire order, 3 or 4 months worth of stock. They select the freight forwarder, and that freight forwarder ships their entire order all the way to the US. Now, that's the first little red flag. When your entire order is in a container on the water, you increase risk just in case that container gets pulled aside for a customs inspection. If that happens, or if the container falls off the ship, business continuity is affected massively, right? Once it arrives at the port, they then last mile into a 3PL, and then you've got all the different 3PL costs. You've got your expensive storage rates. You've got your container receiving fees, container clean-out fees. Once it's stored, then you've got to go to Amazon and do your SPD, LTL shipments into Amazon, which is another cost. And then finally, your goods get to Amazon FBA. SKUdrop completely reinvents the supply chain tactic. And this is it. This is what we do. SKUdrop becomes your storage facility in China. From there, we also become your logistics partner, and we manage your goods and can ship your goods from China direct to Amazon. And the key component is what we've worked out is that smaller weekly shipments is the innovative supply chain tactic that we've come up with, in terms of, by doing it that way, let's say, for example, you got a 3 or 4 month worth of stock and it might be 15 grand a ship. If you store in China, use SKUdrop and do smaller weekly shipments, you're keeping more cash in your pocket. You're doing smaller weekly shipments, which means you're eliminating risk and you're going direct into Amazon FBA. And that whole SPD, 3PL, container clean-out fee component is gone, which means then that results in a more efficient supply chain, which means you actually make more profit and more margin for your SKUs.
Wow. This is music to my ears, Michael. We're all in business to make money. I happen to have a pile of cash sitting here on my desk just for you. We talked before we went live here today, and you mentioned a number. I'm not going to say it, but you said across the board, for the hundreds and hundreds of Amazon sellers that have already shown an amazing interest in SKUdrop, there's an average savings across the board for these sellers. This means, like, we're talking about found money, walking outside your door right now and picking up cash that's already yours. You just don't know it's there. How much money, all BS aside, Michael, how much money are sellers saving on average right now?
Well, I'll just say this simple statement. If you're a seller out there, just think about your 3PL component alone. Container clean-out fees, receiving fees, storage fees, you name it, plus your SPD, LTL into Amazon. Think about that component. Think about that cost base. With SKUdrop, that is all gone. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, we had an accountant who actually uses SKUdrop, and he sent in 106 CBM to our warehouse facility in China, and he did 42 shipments with SKUdrop, and he actually put SKUdrop to the test. Now, if you want anybody to test SKUdrop, it's an accountant who's a numbers guy, right? Basically, off the back of his 42 shipments, he made a massive discovery. Number one, he saved 9% on his supply chain. Now, this particular accountant, who's a massive, massive seller, 9% on his supply chain is massive, right? It's significant. The second most important thing that he discovered was that previously he would have to hold $500,000 worth of stock for a particular SKU in order to service that in terms of the old way of using a 3PL. With SKUdrop, he has worked out that he can service the same amount of sales while holding half the stock. So he's basically created $250,000 worth of internal financing, which he can use towards salary, scaling, new products, whatever. So especially, look, at the end of the day, right, and all the sellers listening know, Amazon businesses are cash intensive. You know, you've got your order, your shipping. It's like lots of money's leaving your pocket. With SKUdrop, we can help you keep more money in your pocket to keep more cash in your bank account, but yet still obviously service the same amount of sales, which is just massive. And
Cash.
yeah, that's exactly right. But I know sellers are very logical, and when they just think about the 50,000 foot view of their current supply chain, if they think, okay, remove the 3PL direct into Amazon, it's just a no-brainer. Also, too, obviously storing in China, our storage fees are like dirt cheap compared to the US 3PLs. It's amazing. One more thing, I know I'm jumping around. I get excited talking about this because I'm very passionate about helping Amazon sellers, and we're using it for our brand, and it's just amazing. We have the warehouse facility, obviously the logistics direct into Amazon. It's all wrapped around a beautiful software system that allows you to see what stock you've got stored. You can create a shipping plan in literally pressing 2 buttons. You could do a shipping plan for 10 SKUs, and honestly, it'll take you about 20 seconds. And as soon as you select your shipping option, we've got multiple options: regular, medium, express service, last mile, FedEx, UPS, or truck. You are in the driver's seat. We show you everything. We even compare CBM rates to kilogram rates. We have full transparency. Once you select your SKUs, number of cartons, and obviously select your shipping option, when you press that button, everything is done.
Wow.
The warehouse has all your SKU information. We have all your FBA labels. Now, using a 3PL in the past, I've experienced this. You've got to get your FBA labels from Amazon, attach it to an email, attach a spreadsheet. It's a nightmare.
Absolutely.
And then from there,
amazing.
everything's automated. So it's it's very powerful.
So Seth and I, we interact with tens of thousands of sellers all over the world, and a lot of sellers are literally spending thousands and thousands of dollars every week for 3PL warehouses so they can have this like just-in-time type of inventory or supply chain, when in fact SKUdrop literally erases the need for all that, right? All that super high-priced, expensive 3PL storage stateside, and you are like the easy button for just-in-time inventory for Amazon FBA sellers. It's ridiculous. And before you go into that, John had a question here. He says, how does this affect air freight versus sea freight?
It's a very good question. We actually have air freight options as well.
Okay.
So air freight's 10 to 15 days, and then you've got obviously regular, medium, express service for sea. So if you do need to get SKUs in quicker, if you're selling a little bit, obviously some particular SKU a little bit faster, you can just toggle across the air freight options. Then we provide you air freight options, and then you can, same thing, select it, and then everything's automated from there.
Yeah, so this is incredible. So like Sean said, this is just-in-time inventory, but made easy for your Amazon business, which I love. And so let's get into it a little bit more, Michael. So when you're building an Amazon brand or you're selling on Amazon, like you said, it's so capital intensive. All my money is sitting on the shelves at Amazon a lot of times. But in just one of your cases, you're saying that the cash needed to run day to day is reduced by half. So that's a major advantage when it comes to cash flow, because that's one of the biggest drawbacks of trying to grow and scale an Amazon business is you never have enough cash, right?
Yeah.
So how does this change the dynamic when it comes to launching new products and growing the brand and getting scale, because you have twice as much cash in the business?
You know, that's exactly what my son is going through at this very moment. He's 16 years old. You're going to meet him eventually. But he's like, Dad, how do I finance the inventory while I'm waiting on Amazon to pay me? And he's getting super creative with this stuff because he's ordering not from China, but from Mexico. And he's struggling with this. So kudos to you for making this available to folks. So go ahead, Michael.
Well, if you think about traditional product launches, right? Again, I'm going to go back to what SKUdrop isn't. But if you have a product launch and you've got the old supply chain tactic, I'll call it, not the innovative SKUdrop supply chain tactic, you'll do an order. Let's say, for example, for round figures, you'll order 1,000 units from, let's say, a supplier in China. What you've got to then do is you've got to then find the freight forwarder to ship that whole order across to the US. You've then got to add the cost of the 3PL, and then you've got to obviously SPD in, and then you've got to, PPC, you launch, and then you've got to sort of look at that SKU and launch it, okay? Whereas with SKUdrop, if you could order, for example, 500 or 1,000 units, store it in China, right? And then just drip feed in 100 units and just test. There's no 3PL component. Your tariffs, when you're importing tariffs and everything will be much less. So you can maximize the launch by reducing costs to test. Now, if something was to go wrong with that particular SKU, if it's in a US 3PL, what are you going to do? You're going to get them to fix the product? Are you going to get them to open all the boxes? But guess what? If it's in China and you've launched that product and you've got to make a couple of iterations, you can do it because the stock's in China and it's down the road from your supplier. So now we're bringing these whole host of other advantages when, obviously launching products as well. The big thing, and we've had this happen a couple of times, if you had, say, 4,000 or 5,000 SKUs in a warehouse in the US and something's wrong with that product, good luck trying to fix it in America. That's all I'm going to say. Yeah. We've had a couple of people say, oh my God, there's something wrong with my product. My supplier's going to pick up my goods. Thank God it was in China. That alone can save you thousands and thousands of dollars.
Yeah, that's amazing. So, Michael, there's so many advantages. You have cheaper storage in China. You can do just-in-time shipments, so it frees up cash flow. I mean, it just makes your business a healthier business and a better cash flow producing machine. So I'm in love with it. No wonder why you guys are taking the industry by storm right now. So, Michael, I know that we were talking beforehand. You guys have like a special offer for our audience here. If you want to talk about it.
Yeah, sure. If you go to SKUdrop.com and create an account, you can add the code SKUdrop12, which will give you 12 months off our subscription fees for the software. The SKUdrop sort of fee structure is very simple. We have 49 cents USD per CBM per day for storage. And we have a $9.99 software access fee per month. But you'll get that for free with that code.
Dang. So you just gave away $120 just for hanging out with us here.
Yep.
So let me just say that in hillbilly English. So go to SKUdrop.com, right? SKUdrop.com and sign up for an account. It's not going to cost you anything for the account. If you use the code SKUdrop12, you're going to get the first 12 months free access to the software. And my favorite thing, stop sending full container loads from China to the U.S. and throwing money out the window. I love saving money. Any money that you save goes right to the bottom line. And you just talked about an average case study, Michael, where the seller's adding 9% back. I mean, there are sellers out there who are working on thinner margins than 9%, unfortunately. So this is huge. Seth, get us ready to get out of here.
Yeah, Michael. So is there any parting advice or someplace where you'd like to send everybody today to check out SKUdrop and then connect with you?
Parting advice to all the sellers out there. If you think about your supply chain logically, and if you can remove the 3PL component, there's a massive cost base that will be removed from your bottom line. And when you merge that with the SKUdrop supply chain tactic of storing in China, smaller weekly shipments, which means you keep more cash in your pocket, and then you're eliminating that 3PL. It's just a no-brainer. Do the maths. That's what everyone does. And we challenge you to compare your costs from China all the way into Amazon and include your 3PL component, and then add all the ugly stuff of the extra risk when the whole order's on the water. Logically think about it, and I'll see you in SKUdrop.
Thanks a lot. Michael Fenech, one of the co-founders of SKUdrop. Don't
Thanks,
go anywhere, Michael.